Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. Please subscribe if you haven't yet already. It's a red button beneath me somewhere, and if you click on that, you'll be subscribed to my channel. There's also a white bell next to that, and if you click on that, you will get an alert every time I upload new content. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That would make me super happy. Today's video is another autumnal get ready with me. This look using the Melt Dark Matter and Rust palettes. So if you'd like to see how I got this look and do a little listening to me talk about Stranger Things, The Spy, please keep watching. All right, I've already primed with my NARS Smudge Proof Primer. And now I'm gonna go in with Classic over my whole lid with kind of a larger, this is one of the ColourPop brushes. So we open, just to kind of set everything down, we open at Hawkins where Will is being wheeled in, kind of where we left off last time. And Hopper's also being hosed down. Will's temperature is up to 106, which is a huge jump from, it's a big fever for anybody, but his temperature was already low. And Will is screaming in pain, and they strip off his shirt to see where the wounds are, and there's nothing. And they ask him where it hurts, and he says everywhere. Now I'm going to go in with, this is the two of there was an Ulta Real Techniques Black Friday or Cyber Monday thing. It came with two double-sided brushes and two sponges. And they're meant to be for highlighting and strobing. But I'm using these for eyes to give myself kind of like big, not so much this one, but the little one definitely. So I'm going to go in with a smaller brush. I'm going to go in with a larger size of it. And I'm going to go in with Antique. So a decently sized brush just to kind of really blow out transition color in there. And yeah, he says that it hurts everywhere. Then we are in a car with Steve and Dustin at night. It's dark road. And Steve does not believe Dustin about Dart. Flip it over to the smaller side and go with Rubbish. And Steve, again, like in Hawkins, I'm still unclear about why anyone would have doubts. Especially, not anyone in Hawkins, but anyone in Hawkins who was involved. Because Steve definitely saw things last season. But Dustin says no, it's because it ate my cat. I'm certain that it's not. It's not because its face opened up and it ate my cat. Then they go to Dustin's house. Smaller crease brush. This is a carroty brush. It's E30. And I'm going to go in with Rott, R-O-T-T. And he's trying to get confirmation that it's not a prank, and Steve ends up going down there, and what he finds is that it's molted again. There's like a snake skin kind of thing, and it's burrowed through the wall. They see this giant tunnel, which is not good. Then I'm going to go in with Enigma from the Dark Matter palette, and I'm going to put this all over my lid. It's just such a really pretty, it's almost a cool color, but it's definitely like a deep red, deep maroony kind of red. But it is kind of cool, which is nice. And then we're at the buyer's house and we see the Hawkins people there with cameras snooping around and taking stuff. And they took I don't know if they took the video tape or just the JVC recorder, but they took Bob's stuff. Then we are back at Hawkins' lab, and Joyce understandably is not happy. And she is screaming at the doctors, saying that he's kind of been in the same state since she found him in the football field. And that was when he yelled at the monster to get away, and it did totally engulf him, kind of came inside of him, so that wasn't good. And he's kind of been that way ever since. And she's obviously upset, and Owens is there, and it is clear, like, she's been back there. It's not like this is a revelation. She's been bringing him in all of these times and reporting these things, and Owens every time has said that the visions were in his head, and she wants to transfer hospitals. And they say that Hawkins' lab is going to supply Will with the best treatment available, and she says, what are you treating him for? Like, who? We find out what they think they're treating him for shortly, but at this point, who knows? Want something a little darker in my crease? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in with Enigma again. And I'm going to go in with a pencil brush just to really kind of put down some darker color right in my crease. All right, so then we are in I think, my favorite storyline from this episode. We are back at Murray's apartment. We hear the recording of Dr. Owen's admission of guilt, and again, the amazing editing that they're doing there. And actually what I'm gonna do now, because I do want a little bit of shimmer, I'm gonna go in with, this is one of the Butter London Glaze and Eyeglasses. This is in icing. These were on sale for $12 on Black Friday or Cyber Monday. And it's a really interesting texture. It's very kind of gelatinous almost, like it wiggles like pudding. And I'm just gonna put this right in the center of my lid. And then I'm switching my fingers. I put it down with my ring finger, and then I'm switching to my pinky to kind of move it around a little bit. A little goes a long way with this, wiping off my hands. And I'm gonna go back in with the larger side of that first Real Techniques brush that I started contouring with, just to blend this out a little bit more. Maybe okay. Then I'm gonna go in with my Inglot gel liner, and this is a Makeup Geek. I normally use straight brushes, but this is one of those angled guys. So I'm gonna give this a shot. So we are at Murray's, and it opens with us hearing Owen's admission of guilt, and then we see that he is turning off a tape player, and they are dubbing multiple tapes and sending them off to news authorities. And I think the one that we see is from the Chicago Sun-Times, and it's clear that they're just doing like a big mailing kind of situation. And then they are having vodka and toasting each other to taking down the man. And then they actually decide not to be drinking because they have to drive home. Jonathan has to drive home. Murray says that they can stay, that he has a guest bedroom, and then they're kind of talking about maybe it would be better to stay. But then Jonathan asks if he can sleep on the couch. And they explain to Murray that they're just friends. And Murray says, "You told me a lot of shockers today, but this is the first lie." And he's talking about, you know, their chemistry and the fact that they have this kind of shared trauma. And then he kind of digs into the issues that they might have, and he talks about the fact that Jonathan probably has like issues with his father. And then they also talk about the fact that there's probably someone in the wings for Nancy, and Jonathan says Steve. And they start talking about, does she love him? And she says she does. And then he says, there it is, ladies and germs, the second lie of the evening. Then they go to their respective separate bedrooms, and I think it's Billie Holiday playing again, which is just really nice. And they're both kind of confronting what he said. And they both leave their rooms, and then they see each other in the hall, and then they're being awkward. And then they both go back to their rooms. And then Nancy, we're back in the bedroom, and we see Nancy kind of struggling. And then she comes out, and Jonathan's there. And he kisses her, which was amazing. But then she kind of pulls back, which is amazing. And then she kisses him. Really appreciate the fact that we also see her kind of going at him. And then they stumble into her bedroom and close the door. And we don't see anything, which is awesome. I like it when we don't need to see. We've all been shipping them, I think, for a while. And we don't need to see that. They can have their private time. And they're minors. Well, the actors aren't, but the characters are. I'm gonna lay down some face primer first. This is the Ordinary primer. And then the next scene, it's such an awesome, their transitions are really good. And the editing, the audio editing, like when Jonathan goes into his room and the music is playing in the last scene, when the music is over and he closes his door, when he's going into his room for the first time, as he's closing his door, that's the last beat of the music as it ends. So the next scene, amazingly, is Erica, Lucas's little brother Erica, and she is in her bedroom with He-Man that she previously stole from Lucas's bedroom, and a Barbie, and they're making out, and Lucas comes in, and he says that these two dolls can't be kissing because they don't even exist on the same planet. And she says, isn't he too old to be playing with dolls? But then this is how we find out that Dustin's been calling out code red, code red, code red. And Lucas runs to his walkie-talkie and turns it on and finds him and realizes that Dustin ends up telling him that he's with Steve, and he's like, Steve? And Steve's there. I love that relationship between Steve and Dustin. And he says that Dart has grown and escaped, and he might be I mean, he obviously is a small Demogorgon. And to come with your binoculars and your wrist rocket to the dump. Then we are back at Hawkins, and they're going to release Hopper, which I'm wondering if at some point, I don't know. He wasn't down there very long. He certainly wasn't down there as long as Will was, but I wonder if something's changed in him because he was down there, right? And I wonder if anything's in him. And we learn soon what their theories are about what's happening with Will. And I wonder if anything like this could be happening with Hopper at some point. Going to set my under eye with my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Powder. And I'm going to use this, I haven't used this on camera in a while. This is the Benefit Conditioning Brow Primer. Lay this down and then I'll come back and do my brows after I've done the rest of my face. I don't know what the instructions are for this. I don't know if you're supposed to let it dry down all the way or not, but I definitely notice that it gives me better volume when I'm using it. Yeah, so then they're discharging Hopper and they're giving him a hazmat suit. And I'm going in with my Benefit Frat Boy blush, which I haven't used in a while. I like this a lot. And it feels very autumnal because football. Not that I watch football. I do watch the Puppy Bowl, which is on Animal Planet in the US on Super Bowl Sunday. I love the Puppy Bowl. I'm a giant dork, but you all know that. Kevin Aquan, the sculpting powder. All right, so then we're still at Hawkins, and Owens is explaining that all organisms develop defense mechanisms and they adapt, they find ways to survive. And we learn from Dr. Owens that there's a complication, and that complication is Will Byers. Then we are still in the hospital, we're back in Will's room, and Bob says, I always thought that stuff like this happened in movies and comic books. And Bob's being very comforting, and he says it kind of makes the idea of moving to Maine sound less crazy. And yes and no. I'm going to use this. This is the Bare Minerals Translucent Powder Duo, and I'm going to use the Glow side. I don't use this much, but I often don't need like a glitter ball highlighter. And this is just nice. I like this. It's very subtle. Yeah, I see it there. But I like this a lot. People don't like this. It was in a BoxyCharm before I was subscribing to BoxyCharm, and I know a lot of people have it, and I've heard not great things about it, but I like this a lot. It's very subtle, and sometimes I like subtle. Sometimes I like less or more than subtle. So yeah, he says moving to Maine, and then it made me think about Stephen King because moving to Maine can mean a couple different things. And then Will wakes up, Bob calls for a doctor, but Will does not recognize Bob. And then we're back at Murray's with another amazing scene, breakfast, and Murray asks Jonathan how the pullout was. And they both kind of stumble. And Jonathan says it was good. And Murray says, I bet. And Nancy's reaction is awesome. I just love, that's an awesome, awesome scene. And then they leave, and he says, like, if you need, he gives him a parting gift of vodka, and he says, if you need me, or if you need to find me or something, don't. Like, basically, we're done with each other. I liked Murray. And then, oh, Billy. We're at Billy and Max's, and he is lifting weights, smoking cigarettes, and drinking beer while watching the video for Round and Round, probably on MTV. And he's just so, he does it really well. I've seen the actual guy, the actor, who was Australian, and he seems like a nice enough guy. He plays creepy bully really, really well. I'm gonna go in with the Charlotte Tilbury powder all over to set this. Lashes with L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise Mascara. Right, so then there's someone at the door, and it's Lucas, and he's basically saying now he has proof. So to come with him, and then he can give her proof about all the things that he told her about what happened last year. She's trying to keep him away from her brother. She comes in and he says, who the hell were you talking to? And she says, Mormons, talkative ones. And it's clear that he doesn't believe her, but he doesn't pursue it. He does go out in front, and Dustin has gone around the side to her bedroom, and she comes out the window and gets onto his bike, and he takes her away. But yeah, the Billy stuff is just, ugh. All right, then we are back in Hawkins, and we're still with Will. He remembers Owens, but it seems like he mostly remembers him just because he's a doctor, like he recognizes him. And that's annoying, but that's okay. The mascara mishap. Go in with my Charlotte Tilbury Feline Flick to cover up this stuff that went away with the eyelash curler. I'll zoom you through my lips. I'm going to use Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat in Kiss and Tell and Charlotte Tilbury Lipstick in Love Bite. All right, we're back at Hawkins, and Will does know Mike, but it takes him a while to realize who he is. He doesn't know Hopper. And Will says to Owens, I remember they hurt me. And Owens asks if he means the doctors, and Will says, no, the soldiers. They shouldn't have burned the vines, it upset him. They bring in this like severed part of a vine and they're starting to burn it, and they hook Will up to this blood pressure machine. And every time they're hurting the part of the monster, they're hurting Will. And Joyce ends up, I think maybe Joyce or Hopper ends up kind of having him, making them stop because Will's getting hurt. Even though we don't see anything, it's clear that he's really connected. Then we're back with Steve and Dustin, and they're walking very kind of Stand By Me, Stephen King on a train track in the woods. And they're throwing out pieces of meat, and they're talking about girls and about Dart and why did he take this in. And he said that he brought it in to impress Max. Why would a girl be interested in an intergalactic space slug? Because it's cool, Dustin says. And then they start playing Lazy Boy, which is probably one of my favorite songs from the soundtrack. They played it first, I think, in season 1 when Mike and Eleven are in the living room, like the first day that when he's staying home from school, and she sits in the Lazy Boy and like pushes a thing, and she's very excited to be in there. They played it a few times this season, but it was really appropriate and I loved it in this scene. And then Steve's talking to him about love and sexual chemistry, and it's funny but awkward, and it's clear that Dustin's so much younger. And then they're talking about Nancy and that Nancy's different. Dustin thinks that Max is special, and Steve is warning him against falling in love because he's too young to get hurt like that. Then Dustin says that it's easy for Steve because he's so cool and his hair, and Steve admits his secret, which is Fabergé Organics and Farrah Fawcett spray, 4 pumps of Farrah Fawcett spray, which kind of makes sense because his hair is pretty voluminous and fabulous. So, and as they're walking too, as that scene ends, it moves from being kind of close to them to being further away and on the side, and we can see one of the flags, the yellow flags that Hopper left when he was doing all of the exploration around the things that were rotting around the vines in Hawkins. Then we are outside of Hawkins, and Hopper's in his truck, and he's trying to get in touch with Eleven, who we know is at the Ives house. And he's saying, and he's getting teary-eyed, I'm sorry about everything. I don't want you to get hurt at all, and I don't want to lose you. And it feels like it's mostly about her. I'm sure a lot of it is about his daughter, Sarah, but it seems like a lot of it's about her. It seems like he's grown really connected to her. Then we are back at Hawkins, and we see the different brain scans. Like Will's brain scans are changing a lot. It's clear that Owens has delayed the regularly scheduled burns because of him. They say at the rate that it's spreading, he'll be lost by the end of the day. What we do or don't do won't change his outcome. And Owen leaves and goes to his office to have a think. Then we're back in Will's room, and Bob's trying to keep her calm, but then she just wigs out and she runs to the door. Owens is behind the door, everything's behind the door, and there are 2 soldiers protecting it. And she argues with them, and then we're back in bed, and we see it through Will's eyes, and it's kind of lens flary. So it's not human exactly what Will is right now as we're seeing it out through his eyes. He's looking at one of the soldier's guns, and I thought he was going to do something with it, like shoot it or pull it out or something. Although we haven't seen him do anything telekinetically yet, but I was thinking that was going to happen. But then Mike snaps him out of the state that he's in, and he asks if he's hurting, and Will gives a creepy kind of look, and he says, the Shadow Monster, I know how to stop him. Then we're at the junkyard. Steve and Dustin have arrived at the junkyard, and they're lobbing meat, and then Lucas and Max show up, and Steve can tell without Dustin saying anything that that's the girl, and it's awkward because Lucas is with the girl. Lucas and Dustin have kind of a moment behind the car where they're trying to work it out. It must be weird to have been friends for a long time and to have a girl come between you when you have been young friends that have never had kind of a girl in situation before. Then we're back at the buyer's house. Jonathan and Nancy are there, and Jonathan sees like Polaroid stuff, so he realizes that someone else has been here. Someone's been taking pictures. Then we're back at the lab, and he's looking at a table in front of him with all of the drawings from his house. And he points to a location that he thinks is an important location with the vines. He says that he feels like it's important. Back at the junkyard, and they're getting everything ready. Steve's putting gasoline on the ground and everything. And then we go back and forth between that and what's happening at Hawkins as everyone is mobilizing to move towards what Will is suggesting. All right, then we're back at the junkyard because we have had kind of the backs and forths. Lucas is up on the roof using his binoculars to look out. Max says, "You fought things like this before. Are you sure that it's not a bear?" And Dustin says, "Why are you even here if you don't believe us? Just go home." And it's clear that his feelings are hurt. And Steve had said, if you like a girl, you got to pretend like you don't like her. But it's clear that his feelings are hurt, and he's not just pretending like he doesn't like her. Then Max joins Lucas on the roof, and we get a conversation, more information from her about her parents' divorce. Her dad's still back in California, and she's afraid that she's going to become a bully like her brother. And Lucas says that's just never going to happen, that she's a good person, she's a nice person, and it's not going to happen. And then there's a shriek. And then they see it out there, but it isn't taking the bait. Dustin says maybe he's not hungry, and Steve says maybe he's sick of cow. And Steve exits the bus with the baseball bat. And Max says, "What's he doing?" And Dustin says, "Expanding the menu." So he's really out there as bait. But as we see, as he's out there, there are more and more creatures coming. And finally, Dustin tells Steve to come back in, abort, because it's coming in from all angles. And they're in the bus, and Max really sees one for the first time, opening up its mouth. But then they leave. Steve says they're going somewhere. And they are going somewhere. Then they are back in the underground, and the soldiers are going in to the place that Will has recommended, which is the place where Hopper was. He says, wait, that's where I was. And it's really interesting to watch this with Paul Reiser thinking about Burke in Aliens. If you haven't seen Aliens and you're interested, it's a good one actually in the franchise. I think Alien and Aliens are my two favorite. But it's interesting because it feels a lot like Aliens and what his character Burke was kind of doing in Aliens. And then it's clear that he's going into a trap. And they're in Will's room, and Will says, kind of getting emotional, "I'm sorry they made me do it." And Mike gets it. And he says, "The spy." And that's the name of the episode. Mike tries to get through the soldiers, through the barrier to kind of get through, but he can't, and it's too late. Then the video goes to static. And then Will says to his mother, "You should go now, they're almost here." And then we're back in kind of the viewing room where the elevator took Hopper and Owens down before, and we hear things and we see movement, and then we see like a claw hand come up, and the episode is over. It's getting really intense, and I'm really liking it a lot. And I really like Jonathan and Nancy. Okay, so that was a lot. This is probably a longer than normal video. I'm looking at the time, and I'm going to edit it down, but it's probably going to be a lot. So thanks for staying around with me and for watching this and spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. A lot to do on YouTube and a lot to do in the world, and I really appreciate the time that you took to spend with me today. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.